What up, bro? This is Caleb Jones, and this is the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. And this is going to be a difficult one. Some of you are not going to like this. I am about to shit on someone that a lot of you in my audience really, really like. And this is someone I used to like a few years ago, but he has since lost his mind in some respects, and he's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And so this will be a tough one. But as always, I give you all this analysis based on facts and actual quotes that people have said in the past, including this individual. So before I start talking about this individual, by the way, this individual is Scott Adams, as you can probably tell from the title of this podcast. But before I talk about Scott, I want to give you an example of something I used to run into back in the olden days when I used to post on pickup artist forums as Black Dragon, and I was talking about non-monogamy not working. And a dynamic that I saw back then was guys who currently had monogamous girlfriends would get very, very angry with me on the forums. And they'd get very upset. They would attack me personally. They'd get pretty ugly about it. And to be fair, I was pretty brutal about my communication style back then, but they really got into it. And then they would break up with their girlfriends because long-term monogamy doesn't work, of course. And the breakup would occur exactly as I was talking about on these forums. And they would go, wow, you know what? Damn, Black Dragon's right. And they would start posting about, I didn't like Black Dragon. I thought he was a jerk, but you know what? He's right. When he talks about monogamy not working, he's right. I experienced exactly what he's talking about in my last monogamous relationship. And this happened a lot. Or the reverse would happen. Sometimes the reverse would happen where these guys they'd be single and or dating. They would pretty much agree with my stuff and like my content. Then they'd get a girlfriend, a monogamous girlfriend, which is the opposite of what I talk about and what I teach. And then on a dime, all of a sudden, out of the blue, they would suddenly say, Black Dragon sucks, he's a liar. Oh my, they would say things to me like, I can't believe I ever listened to you. Everything you say is wrong, blah, 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 blah. What changed? Did my content change? No, I've been one of the most consistent people in terms of consistency of message over about a 12-year period now on the internet in terms of all the manosphere, red pill, pickup artists, whatever you want. I have been very consistent. I don't change my mind on these things because facts are facts. I can't change my mind just because I don't like the facts. So it wasn't me that changed. What changed? They changed. Their context changed. They got into a monogamous relationship. So 2 months prior, they thought I was great. Now they think I'm terrible. The only change is not the facts, but they got a girlfriend. And in some cases, believe it or not, they would make this change twice. The same guy would make this change twice. So he would say, I'm great. He'd love my stuff. He'd get a girlfriend, and then he'd say, I'm a liar. I have mental issues. I can't believe I ever listened to you. No one should listen to Black Dragon. He sucks. Then the girlfriend would dump him because long-term monogamy doesn't work. And then he would go back to saying, oh my God, Black Dragon's right. Everything he says is right. Black Dragon's awesome. That happened. That literally happened with several people back then. This goes to show you that people will radically change their entire opinions about life, their entire opinions about monogamy and dating and marriage, just based on their contexts. They're changing lifestyles, they're changing contexts, not because of the facts. And that brings us to Scott Adams. As I have said years ago, pre-Trump, this is before Donald Trump ran for office in 2016, Scott Adams had what was back then the best blog on the entire internet. I read every article he wrote, and I was excited every time he posted a new article. They were insightful, they were creative, they were really amazing. They included a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. I really enjoyed Scott Adams' content. I did not agree with his politics. Scott Adams is a hardcore socialist. By his own admission, he is left of Bernie Sanders, so I didn't agree at all with a lot of the solutions he talked about, because a lot of his solutions, unsurprisingly, were based on big government solutions, so I didn't agree with any of that stuff. But in terms of his thinking, his thought process, his analysis, it was fantastic. Loved his blog. It was my favorite blog on the internet for a long time. By the way, side note, my favorite blog before Scott Adams was Vox Day's blog. For years I read his blog until Gamergate came along around, I don't know, when was that? 2009-ish, 10-ish, 11-ish, somewhere in there. And then suddenly Vox Day became this Gamergate guy, and then Trump came around and he became this Trump guy. He went from small government libertarian to big government Trump nationalist. He just a 180 on a lot of his views. You know, Stefan Molyneux did that, unfortunately. A lot of guys did that. Even Alex Jones, 20 years ago, started out as a libertarian bashing George W. Bush, and then he became a Trump Republican. So unfortunately, the Trump phenomenon has warped and converted a lot of ex-libertarians who I used to really like into big government Trump nationalists. And unfortunately, this happened with Scott Adams. When Trump started running for office, Scott Adams started posting about Trump, and he realized very quickly, he tripled his audience very quickly. So he realized, hey, the more I talk about Trump, the more audience I get. And great, this is great. Although he lost a lot of business, he lost a lot of his speaking engagements, but he made up for a lot of that by selling his books to Trump supporters and things like that. Since then, Scott Adams' blog, since around 2016, has been kind of a nightmare. I stopped watching all this content. He used to have a blog, now he has videos. I stopped paying attention. He still has some insightful ideas to this day sometimes, but there's just too much insanity. I finally stopped reading his blog when he said, when Trump, the very first thing Trump did when he became president was he bombed Syria for literally no reason. I commented it on my blogs at the time, and I said at the time, this is early 2018, Assad did not gas those people. Trump is bombing this country for literally no fucking reason. And 2 years later, the report came out. I was right. Assad did not gas those people. Trump bombed Syria for literally no reason. He spent hundreds of millions of dollars, launched a mountain of missiles, killed a bunch of people for literally no reason. And Scott Adams went on his blog and said, bombing Syria for no reason is a great move because it's great negotiation. I went, what? You've lost your fucking mind. And he just got worse and worse. Toward the end of the Joe Biden-Donald Trump political election, he was posting things on Twitter saying literally, if Biden wins, Republicans will be hunted. So either he's lost his fucking mind, or he has just lost his soul, similar to what happened to Mike Cernovich. He lost his soul, and he is now saying things that he doesn't believe because he wants eyeballs. I don't know which of those two things it is, but that's when I stopped paying attention to his content around early 2018, when he became warped by the Trump train. Now, that's not the topic of this podcast. The topic of this podcast is the fact that recently, last few months, I believe early this year or late last year, Scott Adams got married. Now, he didn't just get married, he got traditionally monogamously married. He didn't just get traditionally monogamously married, he got remarried. Not only did he get married to a woman who is quite young, although 30 isn't exactly young, that's not too bad, but not only did he get married to this woman, despite being in her 20s when they started dating, has already been divorced once. This is her second marriage and she's only 30. Okay, now, to put more of this in context, I'm going to bring up an old article that I wrote on my blog back in 2014 when Scott Adams got divorced from his first wife. And I'm going to give you exact quotes of things he said about marriage back in 2014, 7 years ago, 6 years before he decided to get married again. And I'm not going to use this to completely bash Scott Adams, although partially I am, but I'm trying to teach you the mindset of how men work. Men get divorced, they say, oh my God, marriage sucks, and then they get married again. Men get monogamous, they move in with a woman, the relationship ends badly, they go, oh my God, I'm never moving in with a woman again. And then they do it again. Or I'm never getting monogamous again. And then they get monogamous again, because men are fucking stupid about this. So I'm trying to demonstrate to you in real terms, in real time, how this works using Scott Adams, who is a very, very intelligent guy, as an example. And by the way, I want you to remember this. Scott Adams is a genius. He is far more intelligent than me. And even he is susceptible to this massive irrationality and problems where he makes all these rational points about marriage not working. And as soon as some young, hot girl with big tits comes along, and she's young and hot and has big tits, all that logic, all that planning, all that rationality, all those facts just get thrown into the garbage. He jumps right back into a marriage, and assuming he lives long enough, he'll just get divorced again. Especially with a woman that young who has already been divorced once. Jesus Christ. Okay, let me pull up here this article that I wrote about this, and I'm going to give you some quotes. These are things that Scott Adams said verbatim back in 2014 after he got through his divorce. Here we go. Quote number 1. In 2014, marriage is still the best economic arrangement for raising a family. Now, let me pause there really quick. Do you really think Scott Adams is planning on having more kids, this chick? I mean, maybe he is, maybe he isn't, who knows? Continuing on this quote. But in most other senses, it is like adding shit mustard to a shit sandwich. If an alien came to Earth and wanted to find a way to make two people that love each other change their minds, I think he would make them live in the same house and have to coordinate every minute of their lives. Right. This is Scott Adams, and this is what he said about cohabiting with a woman. He is correct. And let me tell you what I said. What I said in response to that quote. What I said, I'm not going to read you the exact quote, so I'm summarizing it. But I said, if I had told Scott Adams this when he was about to marry his first wife, he would have told me to fuck off because he would have been irrational at that point, which is what he's doing again. Now, continuing on with the next quote. This is Scott Adams again, okay, in 2014. 100 years ago, if you and your wife enjoyed square dancing, you had everything in common. There weren't any options to discuss. Those were simple times. But fast forward to 2014, and every human wants to go in a different direction. You want to take spin classes, and I want to go golf. You want to do yoga, and I want to go to the gun range. Every minute of every day involves one or both partners compromising. This is a first world problem to be sure, but the effect is to rob you of your sensation of freedom. End quote. That's it. What have I said many, many times? Correct. You have to compromise in a long-term, live-in, monogamous relationship. Even in an OLTR marriage like I've got, there is some compromising. Not nearly as much. It's maybe 10% of what a monogamous guy has to do. So it's not nearly as much, but there is some. Exactly correct. This is one of the reasons, and he's stating this accurately, this is factual. This is one of the many reasons why in days gone by, you could marry a woman and stay married and you wouldn't get divorced. Yes, you'd cheat, maybe she'd cheat. Monogamy still didn't work, but marriage worked because life was simpler back then. Correct. Now, going on, this is a quote about his divorce. This is right after he got divorced. Here it is. So there I was a year ago with a blank slate, no strings, and an option to create a life from scratch. It was a rare opportunity. The first principle I established for my engineered life involved recognizing that one person would never be the answer to all of my needs. So I looked at all the things I enjoy doing with other people and sought out the right people for those activities. The result is that no one is ever compromising. I only spend time with people who are doing what they want to do when they want to do it. And wow, does that make things nice. This past year, listen to this now, this past year was the most fun of my entire life. No other year comes close. End quote. What have I said about this when men get divorced? When men get divorced, once the divorce is over, they go through a period of massive euphoria and massive happiness to a scale they've never experienced. I certainly went through this when I got divorced way back in 2007, way before 2014, 7 years before that. So I remember those feelings. The difference is I've been able to maintain that high. I've been able to maintain those feelings of happiness. And I know for a fact that Scott Adams' happiness, if it hasn't already, will start dropping now that he is cohabitating full-time in a monogamous traditional marriage with a woman. I don't care how hot she is. I don't care how young she is. I don't care how big her tits are. I don't care how well she sucks his dick. None of those things are going to last long-term, and none of those things offset all of the negatives of traditional monogamous marriage and long-term cohabiting monogamy. He just proved it right there. Now, let me tell you what I said in response to that. Okay, this is my quote in response to what he just said. I said, but here's the sad part. Let's see if Adams remembers all of this happiness and freedom next time he gets one-itis for the next woman who is, quote, not like the rest. I hate to say it, but the odds of him getting monogamously married again at some point are high despite his acknowledgement above, end quote. That's what I said 7 years ago. And I was right. Right? Because I understand how men think about this stuff. They have all kinds of logic and rationality when they don't have one-itis for someone. But as soon as some cute younger girl with big tits comes along, boom, all that rationality goes out the window. They get one-itis again, and they repeat all the same fucking mistakes all over again. I nailed it as usual with my predictions like this. Yes. Now, I'm going to make an aside really quick here. Some of you guys who are hardcore Scott Adams fans will probably say something to me like, well, Caleb, you don't know the details of his marriage. He's probably doing all kinds of things differently in this new marriage than he had in his old marriage to prevent the problems. And my answer to that is, if those two things do not involve him fucking other women whenever he wants, which I would bet $10,000 of my own money he is not implemented in this new marriage, then those other things won't work long term. They might help, and I'm sure the amount of time he experiences in this new marriage that is happy will be longer than his first marriage now that he's older and wiser and he's maybe picked a slightly better woman. I agree with that, but that doesn't mean it's going to work. He will get divorced, assuming he lives long enough. If he's 61 years old, maybe he'll die soon, who knows? Not that old. But assuming he lives long enough, he will get divorced. This woman is going to get bored with him and just monkey branch to some other guy with a lot of money. When you're young and hot and well-known on the internet like she is, this is somewhat easy. It's not a big deal to do. And I will be right about that prediction as well. Keep this podcast handy and wait a few years and watch what happens. As a matter of fact, when, not if, when he gets divorced again, I will do another podcast referring to this podcast. That'll be a fun day. Okay, moving on. Here is the next quote. This is the next Scott Adams quote that I reported back in 2014. Here it is. Another thing I didn't see coming is that there are now more single people than married people in the United States. Side point, that is correct. You are now a minority if you're legally married in the United States. And Europe and Canada too. This is part of Western collapse. I have no problem with marriage. I have a problem with monogamy. I've discussed that before. Continuing on with his quote. That snuck up on me. So loneliness is more of a choice than a necessity in 2014. End quote. Now let me tell you what I said in response to that. Here's my quote. My quote starts, he really needs to read my blog. I reported this right here over 2 years ago, and there's a link to an article, and it did not sneak up on me. I predicted exactly this way back in the 1990s. Fewer people will be married as time goes on. In a few decades, the percentage of monogamously married adults with lifetime monogamy expectations in their marriage will be around 20 to 25%. I don't know exactly when this will happen, but it will happen. Just watch. If you're reading this blog and others like it regularly and getting it, you're truly on the cutting edge of societal change. Yes, now I haven't looked up these stats lately of the number of people who are legally married, but yes, most people these days tend to skip marriage and just tend to cohabitate. The number of people who live with a spouse-like person over the age of 35 really hasn't gone down. So it's not that cohabitation has gone down necessarily, it's just legal marriage has gone down. What has gone down in terms of cohabiting are people in their 20s. And I've talked about this before. All this red pill stuff about men are running away from marriage. No, they're fucking not. They still get married and or settle down in monogamous and living with someone by age 35. It's men in their 20s who don't do that. Men in their 20s stay single and or stay not living with a woman longer than historically was the case. Historically, the average man got married and moved in with a woman at age 23. Today it's age 29, and that age is going to continue to climb. So yes, over time in the collapsing Western world, the number of people who will be traditionally monogamously married in a real traditional monogamous legal marriage is going to be not only the minority, but a small minority. Yeah, that's the deal. Now, he took all this data, he took all this opinions, he took all this facts, these are facts, and he just chucked them out the window because he got one-itis for a hot, younger woman. What he should have done, this is what Scott Adams should have done, which I'm sure he didn't do. I'm not sure. Let me backtrack on that. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe he did do these two things. I strongly doubt it. I'm sure he did one of these things. I would bet money he didn't do the second thing. The first thing he should have done, and maybe he did do this, is get an enforceable prenuptial agreement. Enforceable. Here's the problem. Where does Scott Adams live? Scott Adams lives in California. California, where prenuptial agreements are not enforceable. So what's going to happen with Scott Adams, most likely, as most Californians, the way it works in California is this is just an example. It gets much worse than this. I'm not going to do a whole thing about California divorce law, but here's the bottom line. If you live in the state of California and you get married in the state of California, okay? which both his girlfriend, his wife actually, his wife and him live in California, so I'm sure it's a California marriage. If you stay married more than 10 years and then you get divorced after 10 years, you have to pay your ex-wife alimony for the rest of your life. There's no end. The only thing that could end your alimony is if she remarries again. And as many women in California will tell you, what they do is they divorce the rich guy. They wait until 10 years and 1 day, divorce him on that day. And you should see the California divorce statistics. There's this huge spike at 10 years for this reason, because divorce attorneys will tell women, hey, how long have you been married? 8 years. Okay, just wait 2 more years. Just wait 2 more years. And then on 10 years and 1 day, divorce his ass. Then he has to pay you alimony for the rest of your life. And women know this, and women take advantage of this. And a prenuptial agreement does not cancel that. If you are in the state of California and you get divorced after 10 years and your wife starts taking alimony and you go to court and you wave your prenup in the judge's face, say, hey, wait a minute, 10 years ago she signed this thing saying she wouldn't do this. The California judge will grab that prenup and light it on fire and throw it in the trash can and laugh you out of his court. Many men have tried. So the odds of him having an actual enforceable prenuptial agreement, because I believe he got a prenuptial agreement. I would be surprised if he didn't. So I'm sure he got some kind of prenuptial paperwork, but it's not worth shit. Or at a bare minimum, it will protect some of his assets, but not all the assets he wants. Because he lives in fucking California. Not only does he live in California, he lives in the San Francisco area. He lives in Pleasanton, which is San Francisco, which is probably the worst single city in the entire world for the alpha male 2.0 to live. Now, he's not an alpha male 2.0 by any stretch of the imagination. He's wealthy, he's successful, he's smart. He's not an alpha male 2.0. But I could go into detail about how horrible San Francisco is for alpha male 2.0s. Basically, it's because of taxes, cost of living, and dating women. It's terrible on all three of those things. And that's pretty hard to do for a city. Most cities are decent, at least one of those things. San Francisco is fucking terrible for all those things. So, in terms of protecting his long-term finances, like he should do in an OLTR marriage, he gets, on a scale of 1 to 10, he gets maybe a 5. I'm sure he tried, and maybe some protections he has, but he lives in California, which is one of the worst places in the entire world, literally, to get legally married, to legally marry a woman. The state of California, I've talked about that before. Oh my God. All right, that's the first thing he should have done that he didn't do, or likely didn't do, or did half-assed. The second thing he should have done, which I am reasonably sure he didn't do, and again, I would bet a hunk of money, I'd bet $5,000, $10,000 of my own money he did not do this. He should have a sexually open marriage. That means, let me be specific about that, that means he can fuck other women whenever he wants, with whomever he likes, without having to check with his wife. In other words, a marriage like I have. I have sex with other women whenever I want, whomever I want, without checking in with Pink Firefly, and that's the parameters of my marriage. And if she doesn't like it, she can divorce me at any time and get nothing, because I have, unlike Scott Adams, I have enforceable prenuptial paperwork and asset protection structures, many of them international, which ensures that if we ever get divorced, I don't lose a single penny of my money. I have just described pretty much the opposite of the type of marriage that Scott Adams just did with this young chick. And again, the problem with this is he knows better. I just gave you his quotes. He's already been married and divorced. He's already gone through that. Scott Adams is not some young, dumbass, 26-year-old, inexperienced beta male who has no idea what he's doing. Kind of like I was when I first got married when I was 25 years old. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. That's my excuse. And I see occasionally young, dumb guys in their 20s, often hardcore Christians or Hispanic guys, who get legally, traditionally, monogamously married, stupid, in their 20s, because they don't really fully understand what they're doing to themselves. I see that. I understand that. Scott Adams isn't in that category. He did this even though he knew goddamn well, logically in the logic part of his brain, which he completely shut down as soon as he started dating this woman's big tits. He shut all that off, but he knew, and he still knows, he shouldn't have done these things, but he did them anyway. This is normal. Scott Adams is not unusual. Scott Adams is the norm. Most men I see get divorced from traditional monogamous marriages. If you just wait, you wait a few years, they go right back in and do the same damn thing. They go right back in and get another traditional monogamous marriage with some other chick, And yes, usually it's with a woman who's younger and hotter than the first wife. I certainly did that. That part is okay. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with her age. I think that's fine. But what they do is they get married again using the same system that didn't work. And the reason they do this, the justification they make is, it didn't work the first time because I married the wrong woman. This time I'm marrying the right woman. So this time it'll work. Wrong, wrong, wrong. That is not why it didn't work the first time. That's also not why it will work the second time, because it won't. It's not because the woman you chose, it's because of the relationship structure you chose. And you basically have chosen the same relationship structure both times. I would be reasonably confident that he probably got an unenforceable California prenup the first time he got married. So basically, he did the exact same thing that didn't work the first time. He just swapped out one woman for another woman. And now he's expecting that to work, and it won't. Especially a woman that young who has already been divorced already when she was already 30 years old. Boy, is that a bad sign, but whatever. If he had signed enforceable prenuptial paperwork, fine. He gets divorced and nothing bad happens, and he just moves on. His sex life continues because he has an open OLTR marriage. He's still having sex with hot FBs on the side. He doesn't lose a single dime of his money. Yes, divorce isn't fun, but he's not damaged sexually and he's not damaged financially. When Scott Adams gets divorced, this will be really interesting now. When Scott Adams gets divorced a second time, he's going to go onto his new blog and make a video or podcast about why marriage is a terrible idea and men shouldn't do it. And he's going to basically say all the same shit he already said in 2014, and he's just going to say it again because his context will have changed yet again. And just like those guys I talked about at the beginning of this podcast, their entire opinions on monogamy and marriage change based on whether or not they have one-itis for someone or whether or not they really like a girl, not based on rationality, objectivity, and facts. What would be really funny is that Scott Adams got divorced in 10 years from now. So he got married in 2020. If he gets divorced in 2030, 10 years plus a day, that would be hilarious. Now he has to pay alimony to some chick for the rest of his life, probably also child support, because I don't believe this woman has any kids. And if she is 30 years old, 31 years old now, and doesn't have any kids, I promise you that's something she'll be bugging him for. So that's coming next. So he'll be paying child support. He'll be paying all kinds of stuff when he knew better. Don't be like this. Don't change your entire fact-based rational opinions just because you fall in love with someone, or just because you get one-itis for a girl, or just because you get older and don't want to be alone anymore. These things don't change the facts. If you want to settle down with a woman, you can do that. I did that. Do it under the OLTR marriage model, where you can protect your finances when or if you get divorced, and you can regularly have sex with other women, so you never have to argue with your wife when you want to have sex with her and she says no. And because your wife knows you're having sex with other women, the attraction your wife feels towards you remains high instead of dropping like a stone when your wife knows you're only fucking her because you're only allowed to fuck her. Don't make the Scott Adams mistake. And he's not the only one. Millions upon millions upon millions of men make the same mistake. Don't make that error. When you know 2 + 2 = 4, don't suddenly 3, 4, or 5 years from now say, well, wait a minute, I was wrong. 2 + 2 can equal 5 if you're really good at math. That's what Scott Adams is doing. That's what many men do. Don't make that error. Please remember this the next time you have one-itis, or maybe right now, you're getting excited for some amazing woman who is, quote, not like the rest, and you're starting to think, well, maybe monogamy could work. Maybe it could work this time. Duh, maybe Caleb's wrong. Don't do that. Think. Focus. Stay focused. Stay rational. I'll see you soon.